She's not waiting for you to come back. She's waiting for you to break. That's the truth most men miss, because silence feels like emptiness, and in that emptiness, we panic. We assume she's moved on, forgotten, healed. But behind her quiet is a calculated stillness. She's not disappearing. She's observing, watching not with love, but with strategy. She wants to know if you'll crumble without her, if you'll fold into the old pattern, if you'll chase what let go of you. This isn't affection, it's assessment. She's not testing if you love her, she's testing if you've forgotten yourself. And every time you reach out, stalk her stories, or overthink her silence, you give her exactly what she's looking for, proof that she still owns space in your mind. That's not connection, that's control. But here's the shift. You don't owe her a reaction. You don't need to explain your silence. The real power is not in showing her you've changed. It's in becoming so grounded, so clear, so inwardly full, that her absence no longer moves you. So before we dive in, if this is the kind of clarity you've been needing, the kind that helps you rise quietly instead of begging loudly, then like the video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and let's begin this journey of reclaiming your strength. Not from her, but for you. 1. She's not silent. She's studying you. She's not reaching out. She's not calling. She's not asking how you're doing. But don't mistake that silence for detachment. She hasn't disappeared. She's watching, quietly, intentionally. Not because she's wondering how you are, but because she wants to see if you're still orbiting her world. Her silence isn't the absence of feeling. It's a tactic, a slow psychological game designed to expose your emotional weakness. You think she's moved on. You think she's healing. But most of what she posts, the cryptic quotes, the radiant selfies, the subtle digs about growing without you, they're not for herself. They're a mirror held up for you. She doesn't need to ask if you still care. She's watching to see it without words. She's not expressing. She's baiting. And here's where most men fail. They confuse the silence with space. They believe this quiet distance is clean, mutual, and uncharged. But for her, it's not space. It's surveillance. Every time you watch her story, every time you double-tap a memory, every time you hesitate and wonder, should I check in, you're feeding her strategy. Because what she wants isn't necessarily you back in her life. What she wants is the assurance that she never really left your heart. This isn't love. It's about leverage. It's about emotional proof that even in her absence, she still holds power over you. And when you reach out first, when you break the silence to chase some kind of closeness, you confirm it. She still owns space in your mind. And that's all she needs to feel in control. It's a subtle form of dominance that doesn't need a conversation or even a reply. She already said goodbye, but now she wants to see if you ever will, and that's the trap. The real pain doesn't come from her silence. It comes from what it triggers in you. The overthinking, the confusion, the urge to revalidate yourself through her attention again. But you're not here to prove that you're still affected. You're here to remember that you never had to be. Your strength is in not reacting. Your clarity comes not from confronting her, but from confronting your own tendency to seek validation in someone who left. She's not reaching out because she misses you. She's watching to see if she still controls you. And the second you understand that, you shift the power. Not by playing the same game, but by stepping out of it entirely. Let her wonder, let her study you, but give her nothing to decode. The less you reveal, the more she doubts. And the more you remain still, the more she feels your absence, not as a tactic, but as a truth. Because the man who no longer reacts is the man she can no longer reach. 2. The trap isn't her text. It's your reaction. When she finally reaches out, it won't come wrapped in grand gestures or deep apologies. It'll come soft, casual, almost innocent. Hey, just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. maybe even a joke from the past. It won't sound like a trap. That's exactly why it works. The moment feels disarming, like maybe she's realized something, like maybe she regrets it. But what you need to understand is that the words don't matter. It's not about the content of the message. It's about the timing. It's about the effect. She's not knocking because love brought her back. She's knocking to see if the door is still open. She's testing the lock, not walking through it. The real test isn't what she says, it's how you respond. And the moment you bite, the moment you reply too quickly, too emotionally, too hopefully, you fail. Not because you're weak, but because your reaction proves everything she needed to know, that you were just waiting. That despite all the silence, the progress, the growth, you were still hanging on. This is where power shifts without a word. If you respond with eagerness, thinking this is the moment she comes back to you, what you're really doing is handing over confirmation that she still holds emotional weight in your life. She doesn't feel closer. She feels reassured. Reassured that no matter how long it's been, no matter what happened, you're still available when she needs that hit of attention or comfort. She doesn't see a strong man who stood his ground. She sees someone she can still summon. But if you don't respond, if you let that message hang in the silence it deserves, everything reverses. She starts wondering, was the message too late? Did he move on? Did I lose something I thought I could always come back to? Letting her text echo without a reply isn't cruel. It's clear. It says, I'm not here to be pulled back into a dynamic that cost me my peace. It says, I don't confuse curiosity with care or a soft message with real intention. This doesn't mean you hate her. It doesn't mean you need revenge. It means you've grown past the point of needing a breadcrumb to feel seen. It means you're no longer available to conversations that open wounds just to see if they still bleed. Her text is not an invitation, it's an observation. She's checking to see if she still matters. Don't give her that proof. Don't trade your silence for a hit of nostalgia. That one reply may feel small, but it carries weight. Because what she remembers most won't be your words, but your lack of them. And in that silence, she'll hear everything you've become. 3. Closure is a lie that keeps you stuck. There's a moment after the breakup when everything feels unfinished. The conversations ended too abruptly. The last words were rushed, confusing, or maybe there weren't any at all. So you sit there, night after night, replaying what was said, what wasn't said, what should have been said. And somewhere in the chaos of it all, you convince yourself that if you could just talk to her one more time, if she could just explain why, then maybe you could finally let go. That's the lie. The illusion that closure is a door someone else can open for you. But here's the truth. She already said everything she needed to say by walking away. Her silence is a statement. Her absence is the answer. And the longer you chase a final conversation, the longer you stay stuck in a chapter she already closed. You think closure will bring clarity, but what it really brings is dependency. A need for her to validate your pain, to confirm your worth, to explain what went wrong in a way that gives you peace. But peace that depends on someone else's words isn't peace at all. It's a chain. Closure is a myth. A man who needs closure is often just a man who still hasn't accepted that the story is already over. What you're truly looking for isn't understanding, it's relief. Relief from the uncertainty, relief from the idea that maybe you weren't enough, relief from the gnawing thought that something beautiful ended without a reason you can hold on to. But that relief doesn't come from her. It never did. And the longer you believe it might, the more power you give to someone who already left. Let go without permission. Stop waiting for a final scene to make it all make sense. Life doesn't always offer neatly tied conclusions. Sometimes the door slams. Sometimes the goodbye is the silence itself. And sometimes The most honest answer you'll ever get is the one you give yourself. She's gone. That's the reason. You don't need her to validate your experience. You don't need her to explain the shift, the detachment, the sudden loss of interest. Because the truth is, if she cared enough to clarify, she wouldn't have disappeared without doing so. Her silence speaks, and what it says is final. There's dignity in walking forward without a finish line. There's strength in saying, "This ends here," not because someone gave you closure, but because you chose not to keep reopening the wound. Healing isn't a moment gifted to you, it's a moment you claim. You were never meant to beg for peace from someone who took it away. You were never meant to wait for understanding from someone who couldn't even give you honesty. Closure isn't about her voice, it's about your decision. So no, you don't need that final talk. You don't need that one last explanation. What you need is a deep breath, a steady step, and a truth you no longer deny. It's over. I don't need her permission to move forward. I already have mine. 4. Don't let her doubt become yours. There will be a moment, maybe days, maybe weeks after the silence began, when something inside her shifts. At first, she was confident. She thought you'd reach out. She thought you'd fold. She believed you'd fall into the same pattern, sending that message late at night or reacting to the story she posted just for your eyes. But when none of that comes, something she didn't expect begins to settle in. Doubt. She starts to question herself, not because of anything you said, but because of everything you didn't. That silence, the one she assumed you couldn't hold, suddenly becomes louder than any word you could have spoken. She scrolls through her messages and sees no reply. She checks your name online and sees no movement. And for the first time, she's unsure. Did she really matter the way she thought she did? Was she wrong about how deeply you felt? Had she misread your heart completely? This is where many men break. The pull to respond becomes overwhelming, not because they miss her more, but because they fear being misunderstood. There's a voice that says, "I should explain," or "I don't want her thinking I never cared." But that's not clarity. That's guilt disguised as logic. And the truth is, if you break your silence just to manage her perception, you surrender the most powerful position you've held, emotional self-control. Let her wonder. Let her sit with her own distance. The silence she once used as a weapon is now reflecting back at her. And that reflection doesn't look like power anymore. It looks like uncertainty. The doubt she planted in you is now growing in her. She's questioning what was real and what she projected. And that shift, that reversal, is not something you force. It's something you allow. You don't need to prove that you cared. You did. Your silence doesn't erase your love. It redefines your dignity. Because silence isn't coldness, it's discipline. It's the decision to let your actions speak, instead of rushing to defend your heart to someone who walked away from it. This is not about playing games. It's about no longer playing her game. It's about staying rooted in your truth while she circles hers. If you break the silence too soon, you relieve her doubt and reignite yours. But if you hold the line, something powerful happens. Her assumptions begin to crack. Her certainty starts to waver. And in the quiet, she'll begin to feel what she was sure you would. Let her sit in the echo of her own distance. Let her feel what it's like to be unsure of her impact. And when she does, remember, your silence didn't just protect your peace. It reminded her that you were never someone to be taken for granted. 5. Real strength is built where no one's watching. When she walked away, she didn't expect you to rise. She expected you to stall, to sit in silence with your head down, scrolling through memories and waiting for her to remember who you were. In her mind, your strength depended on her presence. She believed she was the fuel that kept you moving, that without her, You would simply pause, stuck in a loop of what-ifs and almosts. And for many men, that's exactly what happens. But not you. You don't rebuild for show. You don't grow just to prove a point. You evolve because remaining the same man she left behind is no longer an option. She thought you'd wait, but you made a different choice, to become so focused on your own expansion that waiting wasn't even part of the equation. The work begins in the silence, the kind of silence that isn't for attention, but for recalibration. You hit the gym not for revenge, but to remind yourself that you're still in command of your discipline. You sharpen your skills, not because she's watching, but because you refuse to stay stagnant in the shadow of someone else's departure. You rebuild a life where her name no longer echoes, not because you've erased the past, but because you've outgrown it. You don't post quotes about your healing. You don't announce every milestone. Real growth doesn't need to scream. It only needs to be. The man you're becoming doesn't chase applause. He creates momentum in silence. One disciplined day, one set of reps, one late-night idea at a time. And when the world finally notices, it won't be because you told them. It'll be because your presence commands it. One day she'll hear about you again, not through your updates or photos, but from the way your name resurfaces in conversation. A friend will mention how focused you've become. Someone will tell her they saw you, and you look different. Not just stronger, but calmer, more grounded, more untouchable. And that's when the silence hits her, not the one you gave her, but the one you've grown so far beyond her reach that she realizes. It's too late. You don't glow up to win her back. You glow up to win yourself back. Because real strength isn't built under lights or from likes. It's built in the quiet hours when no one's clapping, when no one's looking, when all you have is the choice to either break or build. And you chose to build. So when she finally feels the weight of your absence, she won't just miss the man she left. She'll miss the man she never thought you'd become. The one who doesn't need her anymore, not out of spite, but because his world became too vast to circle back. That's real strength, and it's forged in silence. 6. You can't fake letting go. Letting go isn't something you declare, it's something you demonstrate through the quiet choices no one sees. You can't say you've moved on while still refreshing her profile. You can't post quotes about detachment while secretly hoping she's the first one to view them. Real detachment isn't a performance, it's a shift in presence, and until you stop needing her to witness your healing, you're not actually healing at all. This is where many men get stuck, in a cycle of pretending not to care while checking her online activity every night, pretending you're over it while waiting for her to notice your silence. But all of that still centers around her, and if she remains the anchor point for your growth, then your life is still revolving around a person who walked away from you. You don't detach by appearing strong. You detach by actually shifting your focus inward, by reclaiming the attention you've been giving away for free. That starts with decisions that feel small but matter deeply. Unfollow her. Mute her stories. Stop tracking her world. Not because it's petty, but because you owe yourself the space to grow without distractions. Because the longer you keep her in your peripheral vision, the harder it is to center your life around you again. Letting go is not about convincing her you're okay. It's about becoming okay whether she ever knows or not. And that's where real peace is born. Not in her recognition of your strength, but in your disinterest in needing it. Because detachment isn't about coldness or resentment. It's about finally removing her from the throne you built in your mind. Freedom isn't when she stops showing up. Freedom is when you stop looking for her. And once you stop measuring your healing by how she reacts, or if she reacts at all, You reclaim something far more valuable than her attention. You reclaim your emotional independence. You stop living for the echo and start moving in silence, not to be unseen, but to finally be free. So no, you can't fake letting go. Not with Stoic quotes. Not with dramatic silence followed by anxious scrolling. You'll know you've truly let go when her presence no longer shifts your emotional state. When your day no longer bends around her absence. When you stop needing her to see you. And when that moment comes, when you detach not for applause but for your own clarity, you'll feel the difference. You'll stop performing peace and start living it. You'll stop chasing closure and start creating space. And in that space, you'll finally find what she could never give you. Your full self, untouched and undistracted. That's when you've truly moved on. Not when she notices, but when you no longer care if she ever does. 7. The power of absence grows with time. In the beginning, your absence won't shake her. She'll scroll through life, post curated moments, smile in filtered photos. She'll act as if your silence means nothing, like she expected it. And maybe she did, because most women, when they leave, don't immediately feel the loss. What they feel is relief, space, control. And when you stay quiet, they assume it's temporary, a phase, a pause before you inevitably return. But what she doesn't expect is the consistency, that you won't check in, that you won't react, that your presence truly disappears, not just from her feed, but from her world. That's when silence becomes something else entirely, because silence doesn't just create space, it builds pressure, and pressure over time forces reflection. At first, it's subtle, a random moment when your name pops into her mind during a song, a flash of memory while passing by a place you once stood together. She'll reach for her phone, instinctively checking your page, expecting something, a story, a quote, a hint. But there's nothing. Still nothing. And it's that stillness, not your words, not your anger, that begins to gnaw at her. She starts to realize you're not lingering in the background. You're not orbiting her life, waiting for a sign. You're gone. And not in a petty way, not to prove anything, but in a way that says, I've moved forward, not away. That kind of disappearance is powerful because it forces her to sit with what she once thought was replaceable, and question whether she ever really understood your value at all. The truth is, absence doesn't erase you, it magnifies you. The longer you stay silent, the more your image expands, not because she's obsessed, but because now you're undefined. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if you've healed. She doesn't know if she still holds a place in your life. And that not knowing, it creates gravity. Because people only begin to value what they believe they can no longer reach. And when she realizes you're not coming back, not with bitterness, not with need, but with complete acceptance, she won't just feel your absence. She'll feel the weight of everything she lost when she thought she could walk away without consequence. 8. She'll come back. But that's not the win. It might not be today. It might not even be this month. But at some point, when the silence has stretched longer than she expected, she'll return. Not in a grand way. Maybe just a simple message, a memory liked, a song shared, something subtle enough to seem innocent, but intentional enough to test your response. Because when she reaches out, it's not because love has reignited, it's because uncertainty has crept in. She doesn't feel your energy anymore, and that makes her nervous. She's not coming back because she suddenly sees your worth. She's coming back because you stopped trying to prove it. She feels the shift, not just in your absence, but in your indifference. And when a woman feels a man's silence paired with growth, she doesn't feel dismissed. She feels displaced. She thought she could leave and still linger in your heart. But now she's unsure. She no longer feels chosen. And it's that confusion, not clarity, that brings her back to your doorstep. This is the moment that breaks most men. They see her return as a sign. They believe it's redemption, that maybe, just maybe, she finally realizes what she lost. So they reply quickly. They make space for her again. They reopen the door that was finally beginning to close. But when you respond too soon, you hand over the power you spent months reclaiming. But not you. When she reaches out and finds stillness, when her attempt to stir something is met with silence, that's when it hits her. It's not rejection that stings. It's the realization that you don't need her anymore. And that's more painful than anger, because it tells her that what she once assumed was permanent no longer is. You don't have to be cruel. You don't have to be cold. You just don't have to chase. You don't have to validate her return or rush to explain your evolution. You simply stand, quiet, calm, unmoved. Because the goal was never to get her back. It was to get you back. The man who lost himself trying to hold on to someone who was already slipping away. The man who gave too much, questioned too deeply, and waited too long. That version of you is gone, not because she came back, but because you did. So when she returns, don't see it as victory. See it as confirmation that your silence, your strength, and your self-respect rewrote the ending. And this time, you're not the one who needs closure. You already have it. You found it the day you stopped trying to be seen and chose instead to truly see yourself. 9. Your power move. Walk without looking back. There's a moment in every man's journey when he has to decide, do I keep standing in the same spot, hoping for recognition, or do I finally walk forward and stop looking over my shoulder? It's not a loud moment. No dramatic goodbye, no fireworks. It's quiet, still, and clear. And in that moment, something in you shifts. You stop needing her to understand, to regret, to say anything at all. You stop needing to be seen by someone who chose not to see you when it mattered. That's not bitterness. That's evolution. She expected you to check in. She thought the silence would wear you down, that eventually you'd crack, send a message, respond to a post, reach back toward the warmth that once was. But you didn't. She thought you'd leave the door cracked just in case, but instead you locked it, not to punish her, not to make a statement, but because you finally saw what was on the other side of that door, a version of yourself that couldn't let go. A version of yourself who thought closure would come from someone else's validation. That man no longer exists. Walking away isn't always about pain. Sometimes it's about clarity. You realize that waiting for her to come back, to explain, to choose you again, was keeping you from choosing yourself. So you stopped showing up in places where you were once overlooked. You stopped offering attention where it wasn't valued. You stopped checking in, not as an act of revenge, but as an act of release. The strongest move you'll ever make isn't rejection, it's indifference. It's no longer being emotionally tethered to how she feels about you. It's letting her feel whatever she wants to feel, while you move forward without needing any of it to make sense. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to clarify your growth. You simply live. You simply go. And when she realizes you're not coming back, not with a message, not with an apology, not even with a glance, she won't feel empowered. She'll feel erased. Not because you tried to erase her, but because your absence became so complete that it no longer included her. You removed yourself from the story, and that's a feeling she never prepared for. This is the move that redefines you, not just in her eyes, but in your own, because every time you choose not to look back, you affirm that the chapter is closed, the lesson is learned, and the man you are now has no interest in returning to the version of himself that needed to be chosen. You stopped needing to be the exception in someone else's story, and became the main character in your own. So walk away and don't look back, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally matter more. If you've made it this far, you're already starting to understand something that most men miss. Silence isn't the end of a story. It's often where your real story begins. Let me be clear with you. She's not gone quiet because she's forgotten. She's silent because she's watching, and not out of love, out of control. She's trying to see if you're still orbiting her world. And every time you check her page, every time you hesitate, you're giving her the confirmation she's after. This is how emotional power gets transferred, not through words, but through reactions. She's not testing your love. She's testing your self-control. The question is, do you still need her to see you, to feel like you exist? And then, when she texts, it won't be a moment of redemption. It'll be a moment of curiosity. She's not knocking on your door because she's ready to rebuild. She's knocking to see if it still opens. That's where most men fail. They think the message means everything's changed. But what's changed is you. At least it should be. Here's where it gets real. Stop chasing closure. That conversation you think you need to move on, it's a fantasy. Closure doesn't come from her. It comes from your decision to stop needing a reason to heal. You don't need her to explain why she left. She already explained it, by leaving. The silence you hold now isn't passive. It's active. Every day you don't react, she starts to question everything she thought she knew about you. And that doubt, that's not something you create. It's something your restraint allows. So what do you do with all that energy? You build, quietly, in the dark, while no one's clapping. You stop performing progress and start living it, not for her, not to prove anything, but because staying stuck in who you were is no longer acceptable. Letting go isn't about unfollowing her. It's about unfollowing the part of you that still needs her attention, the part of you that performs detachment while still craving recognition. Real freedom comes when you don't care whether she sees your healing or not. And here's the paradox. The longer you stay gone, the more she starts to feel your presence in your absence. Not because you're chasing her, but because you're no longer available. You're no longer in orbit. She may come back, but that's not the win. The win is that you're no longer there to meet her. The win is when her curiosity doesn't interrupt your peace. And when she finally realizes you're not coming back, not out of spite, but because you simply outgrew the story, you become something she never expected. Untouchable. So walk away. Don't announce it. Don't explain it. Just walk, without looking back. Not because she didn't matter, but because now you finally do. If you're ready to stop living in the shadow of who you used to be, if you've chosen growth over comfort, courage over hesitation, then let this be the moment you commit to becoming the man no one thought you could be. Not by talking about change, but by becoming it. Hit like, subscribe to Stoic Station, and comment below, I am the prize. I move forward. This isn't just a phrase, it's a shift in identity. From this point on, you stop waiting for permission. You stop chasing what left. You rise, not for her attention, but for your own transformation.